Now that we have discussed what diversification is and the various motives for diversification, in this final video we now discuss the categorization of diversification strategies to better understand the nature of the firm's diversification and the purpose behind it. The most common categorization scheme for diversification was devised by Rumelt, an academic. And here he focuses on the percentage of revenue from a core business or a core industry. A single business firm represents a firm where 95% or more of the firm's revenue comes from a single industry, its core. A dominant firm represents a firm where 70 to 95% of revenue comes from its core, but it operates in multiple industries, but really there's still one major or dominant industry. It's only when we get to the point where less than 70% of revenues come from one industry that we now are talking about diversified firms. A related diversified firm represents a firm where less than 70% of its revenue come from a single core industry. And within those multiple industries, related means that there is a relatedness in the operations between the businesses. So a constrained firm, related constrained diversified firm, represents a firm where there's moderate to high degree of operational relatedness between its divisions. Here, think of something like Procter & Gamble, where they operate in related divisions because they're related in terms of the value chain stages, which we'll discuss more in a minute. An unrelated diversified firm is a firm who has less than 70% of revenues coming from one industry, but the different industries they are involved in are unrelated to each other. So, for example, a firm that is maybe operating in financial services and healthcare. Those two businesses are very different and have different value chains, and there's very little shared across them. Therefore, this would be an unrelated firm. And here, for example, a company like Berkshire Hathaway comes to mind, where they operate in multiple different industries that don't share much between them. So going forward, we refer to diversification strategies as firms are either related or unrelated diversified firms. And within related diversified firms, we want to think about the extent of that relatedness, whether it's related constrained or related linked. To better understand this relatedness, we want to think about how might two industries be related, and how might a firm that operates in these two industries generate additional value. First, we want to look at and say, if we're operating in two industries, industry A and industry B, are there operational skills or capabilities that are shared across those industries? So, for example, if I'm Apple and I manufacture a computer and I manufacture a tablet, there might be skills in manufacturing both of those electronics that I can share across that will generate additional value. Second, do we have similar customer markets? So, for example, if we have a firm that caters to a particular type of customer, and then they diversify into a second industry that basically serves the same type of customer using a different product or service. So we might have relatedness in the customers. Third, are there relatedness in the product? Do we have products that are similar to each other but are sold in different industries? Again, think here potentially smartphones and tablets. There's a lot of similarity between those, and therefore we might see a firm that operates in both of those industries, which many do. Fourth, we have the idea of distribution channels. Do the various industries share the same distribution channel, which gives us negotiating power or market power? Here, think Procter & Gamble, where if you go into a grocery store, just about every aisle in the grocery store sells Procter & Gamble items. This gives Procter & Gamble negotiating power with the grocery stores because they sell a great number of items that share this distribution channel. And then finally, is there a similar underlying technology? Again, here, think Apple and the Apple iOS system. That iOS, it permeates Apple's products, and therefore the underlying technology is very similar. But you also see this in manufacturing firms where the process to manufacture certain products is very similar, even though the products are in different industries. So, for example, hand soap, or maybe we're thinking about different types of hand soap versus laundry detergent. They're still basically soaps, but they're just for different uses. Now, if the greater degree to which the firm is related across one or more of these dimensions makes it more likely to be referred to as related constrained. So a company like Procter and Gamble, where they share a lot of operational relatedness across their value chains, is more likely to be a related constrained firm. Whereas a company like, say, United Technologies or Walt Disney that shares some relatedness, but then there's also some differences between divisions, might be more of a related link firm. And again, an unrelated firm is a firm where the industry are not related and they don't share any of these aspects. Finally, now that we have an understanding of the different types of diversification strategies, it's worth connecting back to the idea of value creation to understand which sources of value creation are tied to which types of diversification strategies. For firms that are diversified along related dimensions, so related diversification, generally the value creation or the gain comes from economies of scope, again, leveraging its resources across related industries. Two, sharing resources, maybe sharing the value chain activities across different industries where the similar production or maybe similar marketing and sales. And then three, if there is marketing power, where the firm, by becoming bigger and operating across multiple industries that, say, maybe share a distribution channel, if by diversifying the related firm now has market power over its customers or potentially its suppliers, then related diversification may produce value creation. In contrast, unrelated diversification produces value generally from the management of the different divisions rather than the sharing across divisions. So, for example, if I have a process of acquiring businesses and restructuring them, making them more efficient, and then running them in relatively autonomous way, that's one source of value creation for unrelated firms. In addition, unrelated firms tend to be very good at managing capital efficiently and allocating capital across the different divisions to reallocate it and to where the best value or the value creation is the greatest. And then finally, unrelated diversification tends to create value by having a very lean headquarters and by implementing processes and systems that push that efficiency mindset down to its divisions. And those divisions, again, are run autonomously as if they're their own separate companies, but they just report to headquarters. So it's important to note, in addition to the varying nature of the strategy, the varying strategies have different sources of value creation. And this big picture connection between the nature of its value creation and the nature of its type of diversification is important to understand where the synergies are created and where the corporate advantage is created in a diversification strategy.